You're listening to Short History Shorts audio, where history speaks louder than images. Sardinia and Corsica, two rocky sentinels in the heart of the Western Mediterranean, were more than mere stepping stones between Italy and North Africa. For Carthage, they were vital prizes in the contest for naval dominance, commercial supremacy, and strategic control. Long before Rome's legions ever set foot on the islands, Carthage had already carved its presence into their shores, ports, and politics. These islands were not blank slates. They had histories of their own, peopled by indigenous Nuragic cultures in Sardinia and mysterious mountaineers in Corsica, along with Greek merchants, Etruscan sailors, and wandering mercenaries. But it was Carthage that, over time, transformed them into theaters of empire. The Carthaginian presence in Sardinia and Corsica began as early as the 6th century BC, likely as an extension of the Phoenician trading network that predated Carthage's rise. Phoenician ports such as Theros, Nora, and Sulcis were already established in Sardinia's southern coast, serving as waypoints in the grand Mediterranean trade routes stretching from Tyre to Iberia. But as Carthage grew in autonomy and ambition, it absorbed these older outposts into its own sphere of control. Carthaginian dominance of the islands was driven by several imperatives: to guard sea lanes, to access local resources, especially silver, copper, and grain, and to deny rival powers like the Greeks and Etruscans a foothold in these strategically critical territories. Sardinia, in particular, was rich and dangerous. The interior was rugged and fiercely defended by local tribes such as the Ilienses and the Baleares, who rejected foreign control for centuries. As a result, Carthage mostly confined its rule to the coastal lowlands, establishing fortified ports and agricultural estates that could feed fleets and armies alike. These lowlands were defended by a blend of Punic colonists, mercenaries, and loyal local elites. Carthage introduced its own architecture, religious shrines, and burial practices, including the infamous Tophet, which appears in some island locations, echoing the rituals seen back in North Africa. Corsica, meanwhile, was less developed but no less important. With fewer natural harbors and more mountainous terrain, it proved harder to settle and control. Still, Carthage viewed it as a naval asset, a stone cast in the path of Etruscan and later Roman expansion. Corsica's proximity to the Tyrrhenian Sea made it an ideal outpost for surveillance and raiding. The island saw intermittent Punic occupation, with Carthaginian forces establishing watchposts, temporary garrisons, and trading enclaves. But their grip on Corsica was always more tenuous than on Sardinia. Even so, both islands became focal points in Carthage's evolving military doctrine. Their ports provided bases for quinqueremes and triremes. Their fields grew grain for provisioning fleets. Sardinia in particular became a vital logistical node, serving as both a granary and a mustering ground. It was from Sardinia that Carthage could launch operations into Italy, Gaul, or Iberia. It was a forward operating base for empire, but the islands were also a pressure point, a vulnerability. During the First Punic War, 264-241 BC, Rome recognized the value of Sardinia and Corsica and targeted them directly. Though the initial war had been fought largely over Sicily, the loss of that island in 241 BC left Carthage weakened and distracted by the Mercenary War, a brutal internal conflict. Rome seized the opportunity. In 238 BC, Rome invaded Sardinia and Corsica with minimal resistance. Carthage, desperate and fractured, could do little to resist. The islands were annexed and made into Roman provinces, an act that fueled the Carthaginian resentment that would boil into Hannibal's campaigns. Sardinia and Corsica had been more than just colonies. They were investments, and their loss was a deep wound to Carthaginian pride and power. Yet even under Roman control, Punic influence lingered. Carthaginian architecture, religious practices, and inscriptions remained in place for generations. The cultural layering on the islands told the story of Carthage's centuries-long presence, not as distant overlords, but as part of the regional ecosystem. Carthaginian settlers had intermarried, traded, and fought with local peoples, creating a hybrid culture that Rome struggled to erase. The memory of Punic Sardinia was preserved in stone, language, and legend. More than just military and commercial footholds, Sardinia and Corsica reveal how Carthage operated as an imperial power. Its approach was not one of total conquest but of targeted control, coastal domination, naval superiority, and strategic alliances. Carthage didn't need to conquer the interior, it needed the ports, the crops, and the ships. This was maritime imperialism in its purest form. It is also a reminder of how empire is both presence and absence. What Carthage built along the coast of Sardinia still whispers through archaeology, even as the heartland of Carthage itself was reduced to salt and ruins. The Punic legacy in the islands outlived Carthage's fall in 146 BC. In ways subtle and profound, it endured through Romanization, through Christianity, and into the Middle Ages. Every shard of pottery and ruin of a coastal temple speaks to the reach of a city that, from the edge of Africa, shaped the fate of Mediterranean islands hundreds of miles away. Carthage and the Isles, Sardinia and Corsica, were linked by more than distance. They were bound by trade, blood, and ambition. The twin jewels of a maritime empire that saw the sea not as a barrier but as the road to domination.